There's something about Molière that has somehow made him the incarnation of the French spirit, and at the same time his writing has not aged one bit.
Molière had the nerve to offer the king one of his creations. It became a huge success, the king loved, and that's what really launched his career.
Hi everyone and welcome to France in Focus. This year marks the 400th anniversary of the birth of the playwright Molière. His impact on both the French language and the French culture are hard to understate. Here in Paris, there are reminders of him around every corner.
Tout a commencé ici, dans le quartier des Halles, en plein cœur de Paris. Alors, tout le monde pense que Molière est né ici, rue du Pont-Neuf, parce que vous avez ici sur la façade le buste de Molière. Et en fait, tout est faux, puisqu'un marchand du XVIIIe siècle qui a mis ce buste sur sa maison pour se faire de la publicité. Et en réalité, Molière, il est né juste à côté, rue Saint-Honoré, je vais vous montrer. Nous sommes ici devant la vraie maison natale de Molière. Et c'est ici également que Molière a assisté à la mort de sa mère et a assisté également à la ronde des médecins. Et c'est peut-être ça qui lui a inspiré la pièce qu'on connaît tous, Le malade imaginaire, parce que les médecins se sont révélés complètement inefficaces. Molière va rencontrer la famille Béjart, qui est une grande famille de comédiens. Et c'est avec cette famille qu'il va commencer à jouer lorsqu'il a une vingtaine d'années. Et il va fonder sa troupe, la troupe de l'Illustre Théâtre. Et c'est avec cette troupe qu'il va lancer sa carrière de comédien. Alors nous sommes ici dans la cour carrée du Louvre. Et c'est ici que Molière a rencontré le roi Louis XIV. Et cette rencontre avec Louis XIV va être décisive pour Molière, puisque Molière va jouer devant le roi. Il va jouer une tragédie. Ça va être un échec, un bide total pour Molière. Et Molière va avoir le culot de proposer au roi une pièce de sa création, Le Docteur amoureux. Et là, c'est un succès. Le roi va rire. Et c'est ce qui va lancer sa carrière. Le roi Louis XIV décide de faire de Molière et de sa troupe une troupe royale. Donc la troupe de Molière devient troupe royale en 1665 et cette troupe va venir s'installer ici, au Palais Royal. Et c'est ici que Molière et sa troupe vont jouer les plus grands classiques de Molière, et notamment Le Tartuffe en 1669. Il met en scène un faux dévot, Le Tartuffe. Cette pièce ne plaît pas du tout à l'Église et cette pièce va être plusieurs fois censurée et Molière va mettre 5 ans avant de pouvoir la jouer ici au Palais Royal. Ça va être son plus grand triomphe à Paris. Il y a un peu une légende, c'est que Molière serait mort sur scène. Cette légende, elle vient du fait qu'à la fin de la pièce du malade imaginaire, Molière s'effondre sur scène. Et à ce moment-là, il est ramené chez lui d'urgence. Et il est mort en fait, non pas sur scène, mais quelques heures plus tard, chez lui, dans sa maison, rue de Richelieu. Après sa mort, ça va être un peu compliqué pour sa troupe, puisqu'une partie de ses comédiens vont quitter la troupe pour rejoindre la troupe rivale de Molière, les comédiens de l'hôtel de Bourgogne. Mais le roi va décider de mettre fin à ces rivalités en fusionnant les deux groupes. Ça va être la naissance de la comédie française que l'on va baptiser ensuite la Maison de Molière.
Georges Forestier, you are a professor at the Sorbonne and an expert on the works of Molière. Thanks so much for being with us.
The pleasure's mine.
Well, we're marking the 400th anniversary of the birth of Molière. How has he been able to stay relevant so many centuries later?
It's simply because his theater pieces have never stopped being praised by people, generation after generation. There is something immortal in his works, the dramatic strength, as well as the choice of subjects through which Molière made fun of society at the time, the fervor and the blindness of people around him. All of this still resonates with us today. There are still snobs, pedants, people who want to convert others to their religion. So there is a kind of permanent truth in Molière, which explains why his works remain relevant today.
There's a way in which we regard his plays today, but he was pretty controversial during his time. Why is that?
In his time, he was criticized first by people who were stunned by the aesthetic revolution he had brought on. So they treated him as a joke, someone who wasn't capable of writing proper theater pieces. In 1660, when he released Les Précieuses Ridicules, The Affected Young Ladies, people said, "What in the world is that?" Because it was a new type of theater which didn't follow traditional rules, written by an actor who decided to write a piece himself. That explains a lot of things. There was controversy about the very structure of this play, although the public absolutely loved it. And secondly, by making fun of certain people, notably the traditional Catholic bourgeoisie that strictly followed the church's guidance, of course he was met with opposition. One fanatical priest even wrote a letter to Louis XIV saying, "Sir, I praise your clemency in not sending Moliere to burn at the stake, because he is the devil incarnate, a demon made of flesh." But Moliere enjoyed all of that because he knew Louis XIV would protect him.
Mais si Molière s'est amusé à faire ça, c'est parce qu'il savait que Louis XIV le protégeait.
He had a lot to say about the role of women. So was Molière a feminist?
Molière est féministe.
Moliere was a feminist for two reasons. Firstly, because he belonged to a theater company, and in 17th century theater troupes, there was absolute equality between men and women. Women had the same voice, the same powers in decision-making as men. After each representation, the revenue, once all the costs were removed, was shared among the members. Actors were paid as actors, regardless of their gender. Secondly, Moliere's audience, the Parisian aristocracy, frequented both the court and the salons. And who hosted those salons? Ladies, women who wanted to arbitrate taste. It was them who would invite poets, artists, noble friends, and choose the topics of conversation. These women demanded to be treated equally as men. Moliere, who addressed this kind of public, was very sensitive to this feminist demand. There is one common misunderstanding. One of his last works, called Les Femmes Savantes, The Learned Women, is a satirical piece about women of a certain class, like very educated scientists. Readers could think he had gone backwards, but that's not at all the case. He made a mockery of excessiveness and therefore pedantism, whether it's for women or for men. So no, he did not change his position. Moliere was a feminist from beginning to end.
De reniement chez Molière, il est féministe du début à la fin.
Well, French is said to be the language of Molière. How is he able to achieve such an importance when it comes to the French language?
The notion that French is the language of Molière came about in the 19th century, more specifically in the latter half. This was during the Third Republic, which was born out of the rubble left by Napoleon III's Second Empire, after France's defeat to Prussia. At the time, the country needed to reposition itself, both militarily and ideologically, against two other rising European powers, England and Germany, which was unifying around Prussia. So the nation needed to choose a national hero, and the one figure France chose back then was Molière, because he represented that period, which one could say embodied the French spirit, funny, irreverent, forward-looking, someone who had the strength of drama, but knew how to use sarcasm and derision. On top of that, at the time, Molière was considered as a writer who could deliver moral education through theater. So he had everything. Molière represented the French spirit and therefore the French language. It doesn't really mean anything, though. Moliere's language was the same as the language used by other people in his time. So once again, I stress the fact that the Third Republic played a huge role in popularizing Molière because it needed a figure that would transcend all layers of society.
D'en faire un personnage qui traverse toutes les couches de la société.
Okay, Georges Forestier, thanks so much.
Thank you.
C'est moi qui vous remercie.
He's known as the father of French theater, but Molière's influence goes well beyond France. His impact is still felt today all over the world and in some unlikely places. Next, we take you some 4,000 kilometers from here to Senegal.
Sganarelle arguing with his wife Martine. Here, the opening act in Moliere's Médecin malgré lui, or The Doctor in Spite of Himself, is played in Wolof, one of the most widely spoken languages in Senegal. The Kaddu Yaraks Theatre Company is working on the adaptation of this classic play, which it plans to present to the public in coming months. It's a unique but demanding experience for the actors.
Tu interprètes un rôle qui est écrit depuis très longtemps et que tu dois respecter le personnage de Sganarelle, c'est pas si facile.
Driven by his love of his native tongue and of Molière, director Manadou Diol faithfully translated the original text into Wolof. He says that the work of the 17th century French playwright perfectly reflects today's Senegalese society.
It's like he's living here today. The themes he described back then are so familiar to us now. Domestic violence, medicine. During the COVID pandemic, everyone has become a doctor in spite of himself.
Molière is also present in Senegalese education. His works are studied at length, especially in high schools. In this class, the teacher passionately recounts the author's life, as well as his works.
Listen to this. He died after the fourth representation of the imaginary invalid. Naturally, the students are interested because the story is captivating, and Molière was such a good writer, a great classic. All these reasons, and the great man that he was, make it a very interesting subject for the pupils. And we enjoy teaching this subject to this age group.
French is the official language in Senegal, but more than 30 languages and dialects are spoken by its people.
That's it for this edition of France in Focus. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.